Good morning. Hi, St. Louis. Dr. Emily Hecker here with Fertile in St. Louis. And I'm excited because we're going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. It's my career. It's what I do. And I'm super excited. We're going to talk about 4 ways that functional medicine can help your pregnancy or just fertility in general. How functional medicine, what it is, and really how it can support you during this whole journey of pregnancy or wanting to get pregnant and have a baby, or optimal health with that. So we're going to dive into that. So first, let's talk a little bit about what functional medicine is. And this is something that you might have heard more, depending if you are a fluent functional medicine patient, or you've heard this buzzword. And a little bit of my story with this piece is, so this is a second career for me. My original first career choice was a meteorologist, and I went to school for meteorology. I love the weather. I love what God brings. I love nature. I love the storms. Super. I love the weather. Anyway, got my degree in meteorology and wanted to do something after that degree, and really found that chiropractic helped my back when I was finished with college. And so I got a desk job, and in that desk job, I was just sitting around and my back was killing me. So found a chiropractor. I'm like, I'll try this. I never went to a chiropractor before. Didn't know if it was safe. Just didn't do it. We just weren't brought up in our household to see a chiropractor. So it was amazing. He helped my back, got rid of my headaches, and it was a fabulous experience. And so that got me into the chiropractic natural healing type of realms. And realized that Logan College of Chiropractic is right here in St. Louis and in my backyard, literally like 6 minutes. And so after my undergrad, I got my pilot's certificate in meteorology, decided, you know what, God has a different plan for me. I'm going to be a doctor. So went back to school for chiropractic and fell in love with functional medicine. And I had a mentor that really helped me through my early days of chiropractic. And he practiced functional medicine. So it really opened my eyes to what functional medicine is, which is getting to the root cause of illness, and using science along with the skill set and the art of nutrition and lifestyle changes. And it can be done, and it's doable, and people are demanding this. And unfortunately, this is not addressed in the standard Western model right now, but I know a lot of medical providers that are going back to school to get certifications in functional medicines, people like medical doctors and DOs, and just all kinds of providers that are wanting to get the certification, that they know that they want to help people on more of just a surface level of prescribing medication. So functional medicine can be practiced by multiple types of providers. I'm a chiropractor, so I'm a chiropractic physician. I've had specific training in this for years. I've been doing it for about 10 plus years, 11, maybe 12 now. Years fly by so fast now. And I'm a science nerd. I mean, we use data. We get science, lab testing. We look at the whole story, the whole picture of the person to see what's going on, especially when you're dealing with pregnancy or you can't get pregnant or infertility. We see the big picture, and what that entails is initially when you work with a functional medicine provider, you're going to be filling out a very long intake form because they need to know who you are, your whole story. They're going to spend so much time getting to know you. They're going to know so much about you before you even meet them, which is so nice. It's so refreshing in the medical community. So that's kind of in a nutshell how I got into functional medicine, my preview of it, and what I do now. And I love it, and I love science. And so we're going to dive into some more specifics on the 4 ways functional medicine can help your pregnancy. And if you have experienced functional medicine, I would love to see a give me a like, give me a thumbs up, give me a smiley face, give me your favorite emoji if you have experienced functional medicine, whether you're watching this live now or later, because that'll just give us an idea, because there is so much more of a market demand for it. So, and that's okay if you haven't. So we're going to get into the 4 ways. So let's dig in now. One of my favorite topics here. So it was so hard to pick 4 ways that functional medicine can help, but I'm just going to give you the brief synopsis of what I think. And this list can be a lot longer than what it is. And if it is, and if you found that functional medicine has helped you in a way that I have not listed, list it below. We'd love to hear. People want to hear stories. That's what we thrive as humans. We function and operate by stories. So the first way that functional medicine can help your pregnancy is by looking and assessing digestion and absorption. So digestion and absorption, that seems like so sciencey and guts and, just GI type of way. And it really is. You have to know what's going on as far as what's breaking down, how your tissue are breaking down things, what the integrity of the tissue is to be breaking down nutrients that you're consuming from different types of foods. So it looks at a digestion. So we want to break that up. We want to make sure the particles that you're putting in your mouth are being broken up, and then they're being absorbed. So usually when we think about digestion, it's kind of like a glump of just things, just eat, and then your body does what it does. But really, you got to look at the step-by-step physiological processes of this, which is so cool. With my background in aviation and meteorology, I like to see the steps of things work. I'm a problem solver. I'm a mechanic. So I love the mechanics of looking and assessing digestion. So when you assess digestion, you're going to make sure that you're digesting foods properly, which means we also want to look at the absorption of those nutrients with that piece. So there's different ways that you can do this. And there are standard tests that we could do. And we're going to get into a little bit of some of the tests that I use when we're assessing these things, as well as just removing those foods that you know that you might have issues with. And a lot of it is trial and error. I had a patient this week that was curious. She shot me a note, and she was, I'm like, I feel like we're guessing here. And, the reality of it is and medicine in general is an educated guess. And it's a matter of putting the skill set together along with really the best, the way of thinking. So it's how you think that's going to really, really get you farther ahead in addressing your health with that. So digestion and absorption, some of the labs that I like to assess that with is a lab called Vibrant Wellness, and they have a bunch of panels called Zoomer panels. And this is a new technology that they're looking at, and it's really looking at the level of different peptides, how that's being broken down in your body, and how your immune system is reacting to that. So you can look at just food sensitivity testing. You also, which in my opinion, there's a Zoomer panel by Vibrant Wellness, and there's also another really great lab company out on the West Coast called Cyrex Labs. And they are really, really, really just exponentially ahead of their time with looking at the immune factors of how your body's responding to things. So they're going to look at IgG, IgA type of responses with certain things and just tissue, and if you're launching any antibodies against certain things. So those are kind of like more the specialty panels that I like to use with digestion. You can also look at integrity of the gut with some of these, and that will look at zonulin. It'll also look at how your lipase is which is pancreas. So we got to see how all parts of the digestive system are working well. Even if you just get a standard blood draw from your primary care doctor, that's an area that I start with all patients. I start with just a standard blood draw, but when I say standard, it really is very comprehensive with that. So when we look at a blood draw, we're looking at a CBC, which is going to look at blood cell function. I mean, one of the first things we need to know is, are you anemic? Anemia means lack of oxygen, especially when we go back to the pregnancy piece. We want to make sure that your body is producing enough red blood cells to carry the oxygen, kind of like a school bus with kids. You got to think of the school bus as the red blood cell, and the kids that get in it as the oxygen. You got to deliver that oxygen to the school for it to be delivered. Otherwise, you got to deliver the oxygen to the tissue for it to be used, especially in your brain. You know, if you want a good, healthy, functioning, cognitive brain, we got to make sure you're delivering oxygen to those tissues. Or if you're trying to work out with your New Year's resolutions, but man, you just get fatigued and so exhausted. Well, are you anemia? Are you anemic? You know, are there certain things that your body can't tolerate? Do you have really heavy periods too that can make people anemic? Are you a vegan? Are you a vegetarian? Are you getting ample sources of nutrients that you cannot get in animal products? And are you supplementing properly? So those are some of the things that you just standardized blood testing can help assess digestion and absorption that way. So that's how functional medicine goes. And also functional medicine looks at those lab values in a lot more specific range. So what's the range that you're looking at? So functional medicine lab values are based on the healthy population of the people that are in the area that you're living in. And that's one thing that people don't realize is when you do go to your standard tests, you know, with your primary care doc, whether it's LabCorp, Quest, getting basic lab work drawn, those ranges are actually built on an average of, it's a bell curve of everyone in the area that you live in. So it's taken as an average. Now, as people get unhealthier over time, that average is changing. So we have to keep in mind that we are only comparing ourselves to each other. And that's where those ranges come from. And they change. I get notifications all the time that, you know, this lab range is changing a little bit here with that. But we got to look at the optimal state of health. The National Endocrine Society helps notate really those ranges, more specific ranges. National Endocrine Society as well, there's these ranges that are built, and it's really for optimal function, optimal health. So the question for you is, do you want to be compared to everyone around you that has diabetes, that's in the hospital, you know, that's not taking care of themselves, or do you want to compare yourself to someone that is healthy? You know, and looking at those ranges is a huge, huge component. So many functional medicine practitioners can help you when you embark and you look in that direction and say, you know what, I want someone to read my labs just a little bit more specific instead of just calling me on the phone saying everything looks great. You don't need to come in with that. So that's where I really feel like functional medicine excels. It helps you understand what's going on in your body. So we want to look at digestion, absorption. Those are some of the tests that I like to look at. The second thing that functional medicine can help pregnancy and fertility is going to be with decreasing inflammation. Just in general, we are so inflamed as a society. We're drinking coffee 5 cups a day. Maybe you are not, but I mean, look at how many Starbucks are popping up. We're fatigued. We're trying to build that. We're staying up way too late. We're eating sugary, crappy foods, you know, and it's causing inflammatory responses in the body. So how functional medicine can help with pregnancy, can help with fertility, is you're going to be working with someone that's going to be on your side to help you decrease inflammation, whatever that is. And for example, I had a patient that we're working with, and her main source of inflammation is her stress response. And funny as it is, and I've had multiple patients like this, they think they're doing the best thing for their body and they're working out hardcore, especially Orange Theory. Man, that is the place to go. And it's not a bad place by any means, but if your body is having a hard time adapting to that oxidative stress response of working out, then your body's going to have a hard time recovering. So one of the questions you could ask yourself is, am I working out too hard? Am I not allowing myself time to really heal and regenerate the tissue that I'm just blowing through, especially if you're anemic or if you're just totally stressed out? So we got to look at where the inflammation is coming from, whether it's from food sources. So that's one of the places that I always start with my area and with patients and so many other functional medicine docs too, is you got to remove those inflammatory foods that are causing that inflammatory cascade in your body. There's some generalized foods that are inflammatory, like gluten. It's not a phase, it's not a fad, it's science, and it's been proven gluten deteriorates the lining of the gut. If you are a science nerd, go to PubMed, type it in, and you'll see it. It's not guessing at work anymore. So gluten is a big one. Dairy can also be very inflammatory for people, especially if they don't have the genetic predisposition to break it down, or the integrity of the gut to break it down. So pay attention to those are the two main culprits that we like to look at. There's a lot of other foods that can be very inflammatory. Those would be the top two to look at. So we got to remove those inflammatory foods. But something else we also have to look at as we decrease inflammation is, are you dealing with a pathogen? Are you dealing with a critter? Something that's living inside of you that shouldn't be, and it's making a negative impact in your health. And pathogens can be bacteria, they can be fungal, they can be protozoa, parasites. So it's an overgrowth of these organisms that are in places where they should not be and in quantities that they should not be there. So one of the benefits and assets of working with a functional medicine person, doctor, a clinician, is going to be identifying those. Are you dealing with a pathogen? Is that why your absorption sucks so bad and your digestion is making you bloating every time you have that? Because you have worms that you acquired through a visit to Mexico on one of your spring breaks from college. You know, you can be exposed to these things and not realize that they're inside of you. And until you address that on a level where a functional medicine doctor is going to come in, then you're just going to be living in a state of more inflammation. So identifying those pathogens and removing them. There was also a link that I shared on our Fertile in St. Louis page a couple of weeks ago, which I found very interesting, regarding sperm in the male and how some of the sperm can contain bacteria that makes the woman become preeclamptic when they are pregnant, meaning that their blood pressure is kind of all wonky and they can't get that under control. So there's been some research to show that that preeclamptic state is actually could be based on the bacterial load in the sperm of the male. So really interesting to see how much that really can impact you with the pathogens. How do we check for those pathogens? There's a couple of great ways to do it, or just to assess inflammation in general. And one is a stool test, a DNA stool test, as opposed to a culture-based stool test. That DNA it's DNA. You poop, you collect it, and then you shoot it off to the lab. It's easy to do from the luxury of your own home. You just got to collect your poo effectively and not let it flop into the toilet. There are some real things with collecting stool samples, but it gives us a good idea of what's going on with your body. Now that's taking an account to what's going on in that colon. So there are other ways to test than just a stool test, but it's a great test, especially DNA. A type of testing, because DNA is either there or it's not, as opposed to a stool collection that is going to be more put on a petri dish and cultured and waiting for the growth to happen, where it could be contaminated as well. So the stool test is something I definitely like to utilize in my practice. There's also the Zoomer that we talked a little bit about earlier. This one is a blood test that would look at inflammatory markers. One particular Zoomer that I'm very fond of is called the wheat Zoomer, and it really looks at many different proteins within the wheat molecule itself. It looks at gluten, it looks at wheat, it also looks at the integrity of the gut. And it will say, you know, especially if you or your husband or someone you know is just so, they need the data. They just need the data to see, yep, I do have this, so I know I need to refrain from eating the gluten, instead of just saying, you know, I know it's kind of bad for me, let's just stop doing it. You might be one of those people, or especially men, that I've found. But if you can prove it with the test, you're going to be more likely to stay off of those inflammatory things that can aggravate you and your future outlook of a healthy family with that. So that's how we want to decrease inflammation. Pardon me. All right, do we have any questions in here? Hi, Ashley, good morning. If you guys have any questions, pop them in here, because I want to get to your questions too. All right, we're going to go on to number 3, which is nutrient repletion. This is a way that functional medicine can help with pregnancy, with infertility, is to get you the right nutrients that you need to create a healthy baby and to create the right amount of milk that your body needs to supply if you plan on breastfeeding your child. So we want to make sure that your body has the right amount of nutrients. So when you heard of the word depletion, we know what that means, right? We're depleted in certain things like energy, certain nutrients we could be depleted in. We don't have enough. And so that can lead to other different effects in the body or just in your life if you're depleted in energy, with that piece. So the opposite of depletion is called repletion, which is bringing those things back in. So we want to give you nutrient repletion. And this is where the supplement piece comes in with functional medicine. And supplementation is a big piece of what functional medicine does. It's not the only piece by any means. And this is so funny because when I look back on where I am today and when I first started my career 12 years ago in functional medicine, I said, I'm never going to be one of those people that sells supplements. Not my style. Nope, I'm not going to do that. And here I am today. God said, you know what, Emily, we got a different plan for you here. You're going to help people replete your body and replete their bodies with the nutrients that are missing due to certain things. So my outlook has really did a 180 over the years with this piece. And so supplements can be super, super helpful for you. And they are going to be strategically placed in your life and customized for you with a functional medicine doctor to be temporary fixes, to be more long-term, just depending on what tests are done and what your body is needing for that piece. So supplements, that's a whole nother topic with itself because there's so many, it's a $1 billion business out there. You got to be careful to know where you're getting your products from. Even if you're getting them off Amazon, you got to be careful. There's a lot of fraud going on. There's been companies that have been known to sell their expired products to someone, and a good quality company, and those thefts, those thieves, they basically take the expiration date off, they cut it off the bottle, or they empty the pills that are in there, or they'll just get some filler pills and put in there. There's been studies on this. It's been in the New York Times. So where you're getting your supplements from is a big it's a big controversial type of thing. So make sure you're getting them from your provider. They're going to have a direct source to make sure that you're getting good quality products that are not expired, that are not with fillers. So that's huge when we're looking at the repletion part of things. There's a lot of great companies out there, but sometimes it's hard to navigate when you don't really know what a good product is, especially when you're dealing with a prenatal. And if you are, watching this today and you're thinking, wow, I really need to know what I'm putting in my body, especially if it's a prenatal, go back to my Facebook. I have a Facebook Live series that I did a couple weeks ago on how to find the best prenatal. So I want you to go back and watch that because that gives you a whole list of things to look for when you're doing supplement research for that piece. There's a lot to it. So we want to replete your body with the right nutrients. And that's that third way that functional medicine can help with pregnancy, with fertility. And, unfortunately in the medical model, if you're working with your OBGYN, your midwife or whatnot, there's not a lot of training in nutrition. And so they just kind of make their suggestions, or they might be working with someone else that is, a nutritionist, which is great if they have the same outlook. There's lots of types of nutritionists as far as their look on different things. So we want to make sure that you're getting the right nutrients repleted into your body. So we want to use supplements, but the right kind from the right suggestions on that piece. There's also something that you can do that I utilize, which is called it's a blood test. It's called a micronutrient test. And a micronutrient test is going to really look at your micronutrients in your body. So when you do your blood work, they're looking at what's floating around within the blood. Say, I'm going to use B12 as an example because that's a common one that people need to know because it helps with anemia and it helps build red blood cells, and important for fertility, especially if you're delivering oxygen, which we talked about earlier, like the bus, to the baby. So we want to make sure oxygen gets to the baby. B12 is a very important nutrient because it's one of the ingredients that's needed to make a healthy red blood cell. So we need B12 to be made. Now, you can measure B12 in a couple different ways. One of the ways is if you just go and have your standard blood work done, plasma, meaning that you go to your the Quest or LabCorp or whatnot, and they just do a venipuncture and retrieve the blood from there. They're looking, when you do that, like if your doc orders a B12 test, they're looking at all the extracellular B12 that's circulating around in your vein. So they're not measuring what's actually getting inside. They're measuring what's going and floating around outside. So if you're someone that's taking B12 supplementation because you know you have MTHFR, or you've been told it's healthy, or you just feel better doing it, just be aware when they take that blood measurement and they see that your B12 levels are super sky high, like 1200, that's an indication that, yeah, it's from the supplement. That's why that is high. Now, I had a case with myself where I wasn't doing the B12, this was a few years ago, where I was not taking B12 at all. And I did the blood test, and it was high. One of the reasons for that is due to a mutation in the ability to get the B12 into the cell. And so it just circulates in the plasma. And so this is due to more of a genetic polymorphism with that piece. So that's a clue that you might want to support methylation a little bit more if you're doing a blood test and it shows high B12 and you're not consuming any. Now, B12 naturally comes from meat sources. So from meats, proteins, and eggs. So you can get that B12 from those sources, but that typically doesn't drive it up so high. But when you're looking at that B12 piece, like we were talking about, it can be measured extracellularly, but it also can be measured intracellularly. And that's where this micronutrient test comes on, because there's a few, the one company that I use is out of Texas, and they take blood and then they send it to the lab in Texas. They actually go in there and they just suck out all of the nutrients that are within a white blood cell, that's within a lymphocyte. So they have the capability and the technology to be able to go in there and report back to you to say, you know what, your whole your B6, your B12, your folate, there's 60 plus markers that they do in this test. And it's a few $100s to get this test done, but that is a great test that I love to do with pregnancy and fertility. And I know a lot of other docs do. It gives you an idea of where are you absorbing, where are you not absorbing, and how do we need to work with that, rebuild the tissue, and give you the right nutrients so you can flourish, so you can have a healthy baby, have a healthy pregnancy, or just feel better and energized with that piece. So I like to look at nutrient repletion as the third way that functional medicine can help pregnancy. Now, the fourth way that I have here, just to recap, the first one is digestion absorption. Second one is decreasing inflammation. The third one is repleting those nutrients back in. And then the fourth one is creating balance within the body. And this can be in so many different ways. Even with chiropractic, we have we need balance within the body, within the alignment of the spine, within the alignment of the muscles. Even with a pregnant uterus, that's what they call them in medical school. A pregnant woman, they call them pregnant uteruses. Isn't that funny? I always thought that was funny. But when you have a uterus that has a baby, uterus is a muscle. We got to get that muscle balanced, and that's what Dr. Felicity does so awesome in her practice with pregnancy and chiropractic. Not alone is it just the muscles, but the nerve function with that piece too. But balance is in so many different ways applicable in functional medicine, which is why a lot of chiropractors actually do functional medicine, because they're already in the mindset of we need to balance the body. We need to equalize where things are not aligning properly. And so it goes hand in hand with the functional medicine piece. So one of the ways that I work with balancing patients when they come in is looking at blood sugar. That's huge, because if your blood sugar is not balanced, you're probably going to be more fatigued. You're probably going to have a likelihood of having PCOS, which leads to infertility. PCOS is polycystic ovary syndrome, where you have just really cystic ovaries, and it's kind of crazy. It doesn't set back a good feedback loop to your brain to create this typical feedback loop that we're supposed to be having with our cycles. So it can make cycles really inconvenient, really not able to follow them. Especially last week, I know Rachel with Little Flower was on with Dr. Felicity talking about how to tell when you ovulate, so go back and watch that one too. If you haven't, but we want to make sure blood sugar management is on par. So that is one of the first places I start in my functional medicine practice, is making sure you're not consuming so many sugars, because sometimes we don't even realize that smoothie that we're having in the morning with a banana, with an apple, with a pineapple juice, is actually revving our blood sugar up instead of balancing us where we need to be, especially when we consider the baby is made of, I think, 90% protein. We gotta reduce the sugar load and increase the good healthy fats and the good proteins that we're consuming. So we want to get balanced. Blood sugar is huge. How I work with that is looking at your macros. And this could be a good takeaway today for you. If you're like, well, how do I do that? How do I get my blood sugar in balance? Is going to be tracking what you do right now. As simple as that. And we need you to go in and just track what you're putting in. We don't need you to, but you probably want to. So the one software that I recommend, which is free, is called MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal. You might have heard it. You might use it. You might use it just to track your weight. A lot of people just use it to track weight and don't even take advantage of the full functioning features of that free program. But it's a food log. Go in, log what you're eating. It's going to have your macros. So we talk about micronutrients, and this is macronutrients. So these are going to be the biggest things that break down into your body to give you energy. So it's going to be looking at protein, it's going to be looking at fats, and it's going to be looking at carbs. Those three things are going to be your biggest macronutrients that you're going to be tracking. So if you go to MyFitnessPal and just start plugging in what you're currently doing, you don't have to be fancy and make a total huge change right now, but just go see what you're currently doing to really see how many carbs, fats, and protein that you are consuming on a daily basis. If your carbs are like double your protein, you got to change that. You got to bring that down. So it also, when you look at the macronutrients, that's what's going to calculate a calorie. So we think and we get so set up on calorie counting, but really we need to go back and look at where are those calories even coming from? Are they coming from all carbs? Because you could have 1,200 calorie day and eat awesome paleo foods, or you can have a 1,200 calorie day and eat cake all day or donuts. So it's important to know where those calories are coming from, because those two different ways of food are going to totally impact your insulin surges, your pancreas, your digestive system so differently, even though they're the same calories. So go and track your foods, see what you're doing. Protein, this is something where you want to make sure that it is a higher number. I like to say 50 to 100 for a female. For a male, you might need more. And of course, this is all variable based on your needs. So you might want to work with someone who is fluently working with macros to get you the right macronutrient number to aim for. I do work with patients on this so we can refine that, because you need to tweak them every now and then too. So tracking your food is going to be a huge component of blood sugar balance. So you know what you're doing so you can change it. Something else balance-wise that functional medicine also does is look at hormones. And this goes with the testing piece too. And there are lots of tests out there on the market. There's lots of them that the Western medical model cannot use. And they can't use them because they're not allowed to, and they don't get reimbursed from insurance. So I do know a good handful of providers that do work for large hospitals, corporations, but their hands are tied as far as what labs they can actually order for the patient. And so this is where the functional medicine provider comes in and can really be a great asset, a great tool to work hand in hand. And that's something else that I want to point out, is that functional medicine is an adjunct care to current medical providers. They don't take over. They're there to really help and work beside you to help optimize your health. So it's just like having someone else there in the room. Think of it like, if you're familiar with a doula does have a different role in a pregnancy and a delivery than you're delivering OBGYN or midwife. They're there for a different function than a doula is. And if you haven't looked into a doula, you totally should, because they're awesome and they help you through the whole process. But think of functional medicine as adjunct care, and they're going to help you get the results you need with the right team of people. They don't take over, and they shouldn't take over, but they're there to help you with whoever you're working with, whether it's a fertility specialist. They're not going to take over that piece. That's another role. They're going to be an adjunct care to it to help you achieve those results you want. So I just wanted to bring that in, because some people might think like, oh, well, I work with a chiropractor, but I don't want her feelings or his feelings to get hurt if I go to a functional medicine provider. And that's not how it works. They both have different specialties. And I see this in my practice, because I don't even take new chiropractic patients anymore, because I'm just strictly functional medicine. I do have a lot of other chiropractic providers that refer patients to me, because I do specialize in this, and it's just respect. And so don't think that you can only work with one with one type of provider. Pardon me, I talk so much my voice goes. The last thing I want to just bring in is a little bit on that hormone piece with the testing. And I want to just get you familiar with this one particular type of testing, because I love it. And it is the gold standard for hormone testing. And it's by a company called Precision Analytical. And the test that they do is called the Dutch test, DUTCH. The Dutch test stands for Dried Urine Test for Comprehensive Hormones. And just like it said, it's a dried urine. So you take a piece of paper that they have in the test kit, and you pee on it and you let it dry, and that's your test collection. So you can do this particular type of test. They look at the analytes, the metabolites that are within the urine that would give you more information as far as progesterone, estrogen, the androgens, so many different markers. They even pull in an organic acid test, which will tell you nutrient status like B6, or even neurotransmitter is metabolites as well, with the serotonin, the dopamine, glutathione. So this test, called the Dutch test by Precision Analytical, is a great test to do. If you are not in St. Louis and you're like, oh, I want to learn more about this, go to their website. I'll link it here. But it's Precision Analytical. If you want to work with someone in your area, they have a list of providers that have been trained and are familiar with this test. One of my favorite things about this is that they have a cycle mapping test, which looks at your entire cycle, especially if you're having problems getting pregnant, or understanding when you ovulate because you've been doing the family method, but things just aren't aligning properly. But the cycle mapping test basically takes a sample of your urine almost for the whole cycle, like 30 samples. You're not going to get that anywhere else. They take those 30 samples once you're done peeing on those strips and they dry out. You ship them off to their lab. They're going to put together and plot your progesterone, your estrogen for your entire cycle. So you can see where you ovulate, if you ovulate, if it's too robust, if it's not robust enough, if your estrogen is too high compared to your progesterone, if your estrogen's way in the tank and your progesterone is way high. So it's really, really valuable, especially for those of you who are having some hormonal questions, with the functional medicine piece, even with fertility, with pregnancy. You're not going to do that when you're pregnant per se, but it does look at your adrenal hormones too, which is stress induced, which the coffee can drive, which we had an episode on the coffee. So I love tying all of this together, all of the Facebook Lives that we've done, because they're so impactful to making you healthy, to giving your body the best temple it can to provide for another family, for your future family, and for yourself, so you can take care of your future family. So that is it for today, as far as the 4 functional ways that functional medicine can help you. I look forward to seeing you soon. We have an event coming up in February, and we have some new details on that, which is going to be an online event. So if you couldn't make it live, you're going to be seeing details on that. So we're going to change it up a little bit here for you. But pay attention, Ashley. I love your comments. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate this, and it really makes me feel like we are getting information to you that is utilizable, is actionable, and can inform you on different ways to help you. exceed and optimize your health and your baby's health. All right, well, have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.